Did you know that the term monad in Gnostic thought refers to the true God's absolute unity and singularity, existing prior to any duality or multiplicity? The cornerstone of Gnostic theology is the radical transcendence of the true God. This God is not merely greater or more powerful than the created world. It exists on an entirely different plane of being, utterly separate and distinct. This transcendence implies complete unknowability through conventional means. Human language, thought, and sensory experience are all rooted in the material world, rendering them inadequate to grasp the nature of this unique reality. The true God is beyond all categories and concepts that humans can conceive, including existence itself. It is neither being nor non-being, as those are concepts applicable only within the created order. This unknowability is not a deficiency on the part of humanity, it's an inherent characteristic of the divine. The true God is not hiding or withholding itself. It simply exists in a realm beyond human access. This concept differs significantly from many other religious traditions where God is seen as immanent, present within the world, or actively involved in human affairs. In Gnosticism, the material world is the domain of the Demiurge, while the true God remains eternally separate and untouched by the imperfections of creation. The implications of this unknowability are profound. It means that traditional forms of religious practice, such as prayer, ritual, and adherence to moral codes, are ultimately ineffective in reaching the true God. These practices are rooted in the material world and address the Demiurge or other intermediary beings, not the transcendent source. The only way to bridge the gap between humanity and the true God is through Gnosis, a direct, intuitive, and experiential form of spiritual knowledge. This Gnosis is not intellectual understanding, it's a transformative awakening to one's true divine nature and the nature of reality. The emphasis on the true God's ineffability also serves to explain the problem of evil. If the God is perfect and transcendent, then it cannot be held responsible for the suffering and imperfection that exists in the world. This responsibility is placed squarely on the Demiurge. This allows Gnostics to maintain a belief in a perfectly good and transcendent God while acknowledging the reality of evil and suffering in the world. The designation of the true God as unknown father, unknown mother, or simply unknown parent highlights its transcendence beyond human familial concepts. These terms are not meant to be taken literally, as the true God is beyond all earthly relationships and categories. Rather, they serve as metaphors to convey the idea of an ultimate source or origin that is both nurturing and beyond human comprehension. The unknown aspect emphasizes the God's inaccessibility to ordinary human understanding. So this concept distinguishes the Gnostic true God from the patriarchal deities of other religious traditions. While the term father is often used, it is not meant to imply a male gender or paternalistic relationship with creation. Instead, it signifies a source of being that precedes all differentiation and duality, including gender. Some Gnostic texts even use feminine or androgynous imagery to describe the divine, reflecting the idea that the true God transcends all human categories. The use of familial terms, even with the unknown qualifier, suggests a longing for connection and a sense of belonging. The Gnostic believer feels alienated from the material world and yearns for reunion with this ultimate source. The unknown parent represents this yearning for a lost home, a return to the true origin of the soul. This longing motivates the Gnostic quest for Gnosis, the spiritual knowledge that can lead to this reunion. And the emphasis on the unknown aspect also underscores the limitations of human language. And the emphasis on the unknown aspect also underscores the limitations of human language and thought when it comes to describing the divine. No human words or concepts can adequately capture the true nature of the transcendent God. The use of paradoxal or apophatic language, which is language that describes God by saying what it is not, is common in Gnostic texts, reflecting the inherent limitation. The unknown parent is not a name in the conventional sense, but rather a pointer towards a reality that is beyond all naming and definition. The term monad, or the one, emphasizes the absolute unity and singularity of the true God. This God exists prior to any duality, multiplicity, or differentiation. It is the ultimate source from which everything else emanates, but it itself is uncaused and uncreated. The concept of absolute unity is central to Gnostic cosmology and distinguishes it from other religious systems that posit multiple gods or divine beings. The monad is not simply the first among many, but the sole and ultimate source of all existence. And this concept of the monad also has philosophical roots in earlier Greek philosophical traditions, particularly Neoplatonism. However, Gnosticism adapts and reinterprets this concept within its own unique framework. The monad is not simply an abstract philosophical principle, but a living, dynamic source of spiritual energy and being. It is the ultimate goal of the Gnostic quest, the point of return for the soul after its liberation from the material world. The emphasis on the monad singularity also serves to further distinguish it from the Demiurge. The Demiurge, in contrast to the monad, is often depicted as a composite or multiple being associated with various archons and planetary spheres. And this contrast highlights the fundamental difference between the true God, which is absolutely unified, and the Demiurge, which is associated with multiplicity and division. The concept of the monad also has implications for Gnostic soteriology. The goal of Gnosis is not simply to gain knowledge about the true God, but to achieve union with it. This union is understood as a return to the original unity of the monad, a merging of the individual soul with its divine source, and this is the ultimate form of liberation, transcendence of all duality, and a return to the primordial oneness. The terms abyss, depth, and silence evoke the hidden and inaccessible nature of the true God. These metaphors emphasize the God's existence beyond the reach of human perception and language. The abyss suggests a vast, unfathomable expanse, a boundless realm that is beyond human comprehension. The depth implies a hidden dimension, a profound reality that lies beneath the surface of ordinary experience. And silence emphasizes the God's transcendence beyond all words and concepts, a realm of pure being that is beyond all articulation. These metaphors are not meant to suggest that the true God is empty or void, but rather that it's full of a kind of being that is utterly different from anything we can experience in the material world. It is a fullness that transcends all human categories and concepts, a silence that is beyond all sound and language. These terms emphasize the limits of human understanding and the need for a different kind of knowing, a gnosis that transcends the limitations of the senses and the intellect. The use of these metaphors also creates a sense of awe and mystery surrounding the true God. It is not a being that can easily be grasped or defined, but rather a profound and unfathomable mystery. This sense of mystery motivates the Gnostic quest for spiritual exploration and the pursuit of gnosis. It is a journey into the depths of the divine, a search for the hidden truth that lies beyond the veil of the material world. These descriptions of the true God as abyss, depth, and silence also reinforces the Gnostic rejection of anthropomorphism, the tendency to attribute human characteristics to the divine. The true God is not a human-like figure with human emotions and motivations. It is a transcendent principle, a source of being that is beyond all human categories. These metaphors serve to emphasize this radical difference and to discourage any attempts to conceive of the true God in human terms. The core of Gnostic cosmology rests on the radical transcendence of the true God, often referred to as the stranger or the alien God or the unknown father, or even, again, the monad or monad. This God is conceived as utterly beyond comprehension, existing outside of space, time, and all created reality. This transcendence is not merely a matter of degree, it is a fundamental ontological difference. The true God is not simply higher or greater than the created world. It is of an entirely different order of being, completely separate and distinct. This concept distinguishes Gnosticism from many other religious traditions, where the divine is often seen as immanent, present within the world, or actively involved in its affairs. In Gnostic thought, the true God is so far removed from the material realm that it has no direct contact with it. This radical separation is crucial for understanding the Gnostic explanation for the existence of evil and the imperfection in the world. If the true God were the creator of the material world, then it would be responsible for its flaws. The various names given to this transcendent God reflect its unknowable nature. Stranger and alien God emphasize its complete otherness, its lack of connection to the familiar world. Unknown Father highlights the idea that this God is beyond human understanding and cannot be grasped through ordinary means, and the monad signifies its absolute unity and singularity, its existence as the ultimate source of all being, prior to any differentiation or multiplicity. The Gnostic concept of the stranger God represents a radical departure from more conventional theistic understandings of divinity. This true God, variously termed the unknown Father, Mother, Parent, monad, the one, abyss, depth, or silence, is characterized by its utter transcendence and ineffability. This means it exists entirely outside the created universe, beyond all human comprehension, language, and sensory experience, and it is neither being nor non-being as humans understand them, but a source prior to all such distinctions. The radical transcendence serves several key purposes within Gnostic theology. First, it elegantly addresses the problem of evil. If the true God is perfect and utterly separate from creation, then the imperfections and suffering of the material world cannot be attributed to it. Instead, the responsibility lies with the Demiurge. Second, the unknowability of the true God necessitates Gnosis as the only means of bridging the gap between humanity and the divine. Traditional religious practices tied to the material world are deemed insufficient for reaching this transcendent source. The various names and metaphors used to describe the true God further emphasize its otherness. Familial terms like the unknown parent express a longing for connection with the ultimate origin while acknowledging the God's transcendence beyond human relationships. The monad highlights its absolute unity and singularity, contrasting it with the multiplicity of the created world and the Demiurge's associated beings. Abyss, depth, and silence evoke the God's hidden, inaccessible nature, emphasizing the limitations of human perception and language in grasping the divine. These descriptions also serve to distinguish the Gnostic concept of God through anthropomorphic depictions common in other religions. The true God is not a human-like figure with human emotions or motivations. It is a principle of ultimate reality, a source of being that precedes and transcends all human categories, and this emphasis on transcendence creates a sense of awe and mystery, motivating the Gnostic quest for spiritual exploration and the pursuit of Gnosis as a journey into the unfathomable depths of the divine. Ultimately, the Gnostic concept of the stranger God represents a unique and compelling perspective on the nature of divinity, the origin of the world, and the human condition. It offers a radical dualism between the spiritual and material realms, emphasizing the need for spiritual awakening and liberation from the perceived illusions of material existence. The true God, in its utter transcendence, remains a constant source of mystery and a powerful motivator for the Gnostic search for Gnosis.